Well, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and joining me again from the Alert the Post newsletter, a football coach and author of many football books, Bobby Peters. Bobby, we've got another game of Josh Dobbs to look at, and with each game, our sample size grows of what we think of Josh Dobbs as the Minnesota Vikings quarterback. So, if you missed the previous video, go back, check it out. His game against New Orleans, where we broke down 4 plays. We're going to break down 5. So in the game against New Orleans, no surprise, all 4 of those plays were really good from Josh Dobbs. But this time, we've got a couple of plays we want to look at where there were some miscues made. So, Bobby, let's start right out in the first quarter with what PFF tracked as his lone turnover worthy play in this game. And it was not surprisingly the fumble, which was actually caused by a hit that got Kareem Jackson suspended. It was a throw that was not intercepted over the middle. He was looking for TJ Hawkinson on this play, but ends up having it knocked right off the hands of the Broncos defender. What happened with Josh Dobbs on this play?
So this play is a version of the what I call the shallow through concept. So this is a touchdown that, or this is a play that they scored a touchdown on in the Monday night game against San Francisco. So they've had some success with this concept throughout the season so far to date. So what the concept aims to do, so if we let the play run here, all right. So with Addison and Hawkinson, with Addison working as the number 1 receiver on the shallow route and Hawkinson working as the number 3 receiver on the through route, we're trying to create a high-low on the weak hook defender. Now, this high-low works assuming that the defense doesn't allocate extra defenders to this read to kind of cloud the read for the quarterback. So it's a high-low on the weak hook defender, but it starts off as a pure progression to the weak side. So the number 1 receiver up at the top here, I believe that's Osborne. So if the quarterback gets a one-on-one matchup, especially with the running back staying in protection, that's really where the ball should go on paper, right? Now the Broncos also drop 8 into coverage on this play too, so they're able to get an extra defender into that window. So on this play, I would coach up Josh Dobbs to, if you've got that one-on-one to Osborne, we've got to take it. Obviously the receiver looks covered, and the Broncos end up dropping 8. So it's kind of a tough play for the offense. The defense kind of wins this one, but obviously you don't want your quarterback throwing the ball into traffic like this.
I think that's the concern for me with Josh Dobbs a few times throughout his start with the Vikings is that some of these passes have not been intercepted, but could have been intercepted. And now, of course, anytime you look at the all 22 tape, you can look around and find some guy that he probably should have thrown to. That doesn't always mean that option was potentially there. But as the options are exhausted and he does a good job stepping up and creating a little more time for himself, it seems to me, Bobby, that there should be 2 options for Dobbs on this play. One is to just throw it right in front of him to Jordan Addison for like 5 yards, or just throw this ball out of bounds, which I think is probably the thing that they would like Dobbs to do a little bit more. When something is not really there, just get rid of it. And I think if you're a quarterback that's sort of emerged with some heroic plays, that you try to make more heroic plays. And that would be a bit of a concern for me with Dobbs going forward is he going to try a little too hard to fire that ball into traffic when you should just move on, just throw the ball away or check it down and go on to the next play.
Right. And that weak safety kind of looking to poach, we call that a poach technique, where the weak safety is looking at Hawkinson, who's essentially the third receiver working vertical in this case. You can see Dobbs's eyes working to the single receiver Osborne in this clip. So his process is right. But like you said, if Osborne's covered and he's getting ridden to the sideline and you see that weak hook or that weak safety poaching Hawkinson here, yeah, you got to either step up in the pocket. Obviously there's space to throw the ball to Addison there as well, but you don't want to make a bad play worse.
Yep, exactly. All right, let's move on to our next play, which comes, hold on, let me load it, which comes later. This is in the first half where Josh Dobbs does a tremendous job staying with the play, even as the pocket is completely collapsing around him. And even though if you watch the TV version of this, it kind of looked like he was just throwing it to nowhere, flying the ball up in the air. You can see where TJ Hawkinson runs a very unique route and finds himself wide open. And I think impressive of Josh Dobbs to still be able to get this ball off. It's not what you want ideally the throw to look like, but he was so wide open that I think you're okay with the way that Dobbs just found a way to throw a balloon up in the air to come down in TJ Hawkinson's hands.
Yeah, this play call here is a very well designed play. It's a designer shot play off of one of their base actions. So I believe some of the coaches in this coaching tree call this concept bow. So what it is, it's basically like somebody's in the flat, and then like a receiver's running a snag, or in this case, kind of like a little hitch route, and then you're trying to bring a basic dig behind it. So a lot of times, especially in like third and mediums, and the last clip was a good example with like the safeties kind of staying low to try to take away these intermediate inbreakers. Sometimes these safeties will try to rob those basic digs or the dagger cuts. So when you tag what I call a twirl route from Hawkinson here, it's a great way to kind of take advantage of that, because he'll be left one-on-one with a flat defender whose hips are forward. So it's a nice designer shot play. They don't the Broncos look like they're playing a version of cover one here, kind of like a man coverage when they're rotating that safety down. But still, the play works really well because that safety's trying, Hawkinson's sitting at the stick, so he's going to jump the route because it's, it looks like it's like a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 here. So very well designed shot play that plays off of a base concept in their offense that they've had a lot of success with, both with Dobbs and over the last 2 years with Kirk Cousins.
I think this also shows you with Josh Dobbs, his trust for TJ Hawkinson, one, to get open and make that play, but also Hawkinson really sold this quite well. I mean, this is one of the routes that he's doing all the time where he's sitting down in a zone and Dobbs is looking for him on these short passes to the sticks and then flipping around. But the impressive part to me is that Hawkinson shakes off the safety. The safety tries, knowing that he's going to get beat, to just grab Hawkinson and pull him down and take the penalty, and instead shakes him off and ends up just running completely free. Also, I think that with Dobbs, there's an athletic element to having to kind of jump past this ball up there. And again, sometimes that might not go his way, but in this case, to have the arm strength as everyone's collapsing on him and the athleticism to jump up and be able to get that ball there. I was impressed by that play. Maybe a coach looks at it a little differently.
Yeah, from the wide angle here, Dobbs, I can't quite see what's happening inside the pocket, but Dobbs is slightly late on the play, but because it's such a well-designed play and Hawkinson stays with it and Dobbs stays with it, they're still able to complete it downfield. But ideally you want to throw this ball with kind of like a quick, like a 3-step drop with like a quick hitch from shotgun like that. But he stays with the play and the receiver's wide enough open that it works. But one of my coaching points would be in the film as this play is going on repeat, that you can see a touchdown after touchdown and say, hey, just let this ball go on time. Let's get this one out a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to decide with Josh Dobbs whether some of the plays that appear to be just a tick ever so late, is that the chemistry with the receivers, the timing with the offense, or is that an element of Josh Dobbs' game, which we will see a little bit in another clip. Let's move on to our next play, again in the first half, where he delivers a beautiful throw over the middle to Jordan Addison. I want to point out not just the throw here, but Jordan Addison's route running ability impresses me so much. And there's a few examples that we're going to look at here, but his ability to make the cornerback have to back up and feel his speed, even despite the fact that this is off coverage, and then working back toward the quarterback on his dig route. Bobby, I just, when you have Jordan Addison as your receiver, I feel like life is easier.
Yeah, so this play call is a staple concept for Kevin O'Connell, even going back to their LA Rams days. The concept family that it's grouped under is called Dagger. So what it does is it creates basically a high-low on the strong hook player. You've got a vertical element from a slot receiver, an outside dig route, and then some sort of hook control between the hash and the numbers. Actually, going back to fun little fact, the 2021 Rams ran this play in excess of 60 times in that season. I think it accounted for almost over 5% of their offense, which is a staggering amount for a drop back concept like this. It's just a concept that they've loved for years, and O'Connell has taken it to Minnesota with him. The best receivers in the NFL can separate one-on-one on these dig routes, whether the technique, the speed, their separation. It's just a skill that you need to be able to have because everybody runs dagger, and the ability for your number one receiver to create separation on this route is paramount. And whenever you can find teach tape clips where receivers can create that separation with their route stem and then the break on the route, it's always good to add to the film library. So this play here, the Broncos play a version of cover one where they're rotating that weak safety down to help on the through route coming vertically. So that route is double teamed. And there's a lot of different ways that, and we'll get into some of the other versions of this concept with a couple of our next clips. But one of the ways you can read this is to read away from the weak safety or a pure progression. And in this case, in a third and long situation, it looks like they're trying to work the dagger side regardless. So maybe that's the progression that they wanted to work on this play. And they get the dig route one-on-one with that weak safety helping on the through. So they get exactly what they want, and they're able to hit Addison for the first down.
And this play would not be able to develop with the just sheer amount of grass that Jordan Addison has to cover here had Josh Dobbs not climbed the pocket really effectively. And this is a thing that we have now seen for several weeks in a row, where when things are breaking down, sometimes he does run, but he doesn't always. If there is space in the pocket, what did you see in his kind of technical elements there of how he was able to keep his eyes downfield, find some space in the pocket to be able to deliver that pass to Addison?
100%. What he's doing really well is he's doing two things at once really well. He's navigating the pocket while still being on time. And especially for daggers and dig cuts, timing is everything. You want to hit this route before that weak safety can kind of cheat off the through route and realize, oh, it's dagger. I better get to the dig. So throwing this ball on time before Addison, crosses kind of that midfield point is critical on the play. So his understanding of, the timing of the play, as well as, he has to create space for himself in the pocket and not take a silly sack, is the two most impressive elements of the play from Dobbs here.
Yeah, absolutely. And with Dobbs, there are other times in this game where he does take some sacks and maybe did hang on to the ball a little too long or did try to escape when it was unnecessary. But at the same time, we've seen this repeatedly of him being able to create a little more space by stepping up. So we're going to look at now a play on the negative side, which I think a lot of fans would remember from this game. It was a 3rd and 1, and they just need a yard here to keep a drive going toward the end of the half. They end up punting away on 4th and 1. Denver produces points at the end of the half. One of those small game-changing moments in a 1-point loss. This is a check down to Alexander Mattison where the ball is just simply behind him, gives him no chance to convert. Not that I think he would have been able to convert anyway. What went wrong on this play, Bobby?
So this play call is grouped into the dagger family that we just talked about, right? So up at the top of the screen, you've got 3 receivers. You've got one working on the through route. So against single high, he's going to cross. He's going to cross that near safety's face. And then you also have that high-low with that receiver kind of sitting down at about 6 yards between the hash and the numbers, as well as kind of the mini dig coming behind it. So this version of dagger is a little bit shorter. That last one we saw was kind of a bigger version, where the dig route's kind of at 18 yards. This one's at about 10 to 12. So they're trying to make it hit quicker, and especially on third and short like this. Obviously, if you can get rid of the ball quicker, you're going to. So they adapt the concept for the situation. Now to the bottom of the screen, we've got Hockenson in a condensed split running a return route. And then we have Madison, the running back, on a check swing here. So he has a protection responsibility, and then he's going to work out into the flat. So like I said on the previous video, there's a lot of different ways you can read dagger concepts. And with a pairing like this, you typically don't see a dagger variation paired with a single return route like this. This isn't something you see every week in the league. So one of the ways you can read it is off the weak safety rotation. And it looks like that's kind of what the Vikings are trying to do here. So he gets the one-on-one coverage down at the bottom to Hockenson. So he can work this return route if he stays patient, but it looks like he kind of feels some of the pressure, the 5-man pressure getting in his face a little bit. So he decides to dump the ball off on the swing route a little prematurely. And obviously that forces the errant throw and the Broncos are able to win the down. So this one would be really interesting if I was able to ask Kevin O'Connell and the coaching staff how they read this concept or how they were teaching the progression on this version of dagger. I'd be really curious to hear how they were teaching this one.
I think in this case, if this is blocked up well, the receiver comes wide open over the middle that he's most likely reading as his first read. But there isn't time for that. And that was something that Denver did very, very well in this game, that the Vikings offensive line has often given its quarterbacks, whether it was Dobbs or Kirk Cousins before him, a lot of time to throw, a lot of clean pockets. But this was not a clean pocket. And I don't think that the decision is wrong to throw the check down, but it also has to be more accurate than that. Throwing it as far back as he did gave Madison no chance to catch it, gave him no chance to even have his momentum carry over for 1 yard. The other thing I might say too, Bobby, is it's 3rd and 1. And sometimes I have felt like with Kevin O'Connell and this coaching staff that 3rd and short, they will take shots down the field or run concepts that go far past the sticks. That's not necessary when you just need to keep the drive going. And I thought this one was maybe unnecessarily aggressive in this situation.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think there's, this isn't typically a play call I would include in my 3rd and 2 menu. But to your point about, the route coming open, I believe that's Addison on the through route, coming as the first receiver on the dagger side. And, against a 5-man rush, you really want your the way I would teach is I would want my quarterback working that dagger side first. So you'd read that. So if you wanted to teach it like a pure progression, you'd read the through to the dagger to what I call that grab route underneath. At the bottom end of that high-low. And obviously, if that were the case, then he'd be able to see Addison breaking open too. So definitely, like I said, I'd be curious how they were coaching it. And then also at the same point, this, me personally isn't a huge concept that I would include in my 3rd and 2 menu.
There's also a part when you watch Dobbs a little bit different from Kirk Cousins in the anticipation, where Cousins has dealt with pressure on his whole career and has always been a pocket quarterback. So he's never had the escape hatch of running and had to play with a ton of anticipation. This is one where you go, if Kirk is playing quarterback, and again, that's not fair because Kirk has started a lot more games than Josh Dobbs, he probably anticipates where that's going to be and delivers the ball with anticipation to that receiver rather than hanging on to it and trying to check down. So there are differences in their games. And, also I think we saw in this game some of the shortcomings they will have to work around with Josh Dobbs. All right, our final play is one of the best looking plays that you're going to see from this game. Another tremendous route by Jordan Addison. Great timing, a pre-snap motion. Everything is blocked up. This is when it all comes together for a big gain for the Minnesota Vikings, Bobby.
Yes. This concept is a concept that over probably the last year and a half is quickly becoming one of my favorite ones. It's a deep comeback off play action that's meant to look like that dagger concept that we just talked about. So with that fast motion from Addison and that release, and the vertical inside stem from, the receiver on that side of the field, it looks identical to those versions of dagger that we've just watched, right? And dagger is a big play action concept as well as a drop back concept. So this plays right off that route stem, if you will. So with the motion, with Addison coming across the field, the Vikings get one-on-one coverage. The DB is starting to cheat inside and starting to lean in because he's expecting that dig cut. And then Addison gets in his blind spot and breaks out. The ball is thrown perfectly on time from Dobbs. Well-designed play. The Vikings also keep 2 tight ends in on the backside for protection to shore up any type of pressure that the Broncos might be bringing on the play too. Just a beautiful concept. It's an all-purpose concept too, in the sense that it works against a lot of different coverages. And it's a great complement to what the Vikings do a lot of, which is, variations of dagger.
Really want to talk more about Addison and the way that he ran this route because he was selling it inside, and then at the exact right moment at the top of the route, as you mentioned, gets into what they call the blind spot of the defender and snaps his hips and turns around to get wide open. And this is just, to me, this is just next level stuff from him. And the reason that the Vikings wanted to spend a first round pick on a wide receiver who was undersized and who didn't dominate the combine, but this is the type of stuff that they saw on tape that's been able to carry over to his success.
Yeah, when you get a play that looks this beautiful on tape, between Addison's route running, Dobbs' ability to throw on time, and play design, I mean, all 3 elements are coming together on this play. It's when you get something looking this beautiful, you get everybody's pitching in with this one.
Yeah, if you told me that route on tape was Stephon Diggs, I would not have been surprised because there was a lot of similar plays when he was here. Bottom line, before we wrap up, Bobby, what did you see from Josh Dobbs here? Would we conclude that the offense can still continually move the football, or should we pour a little cold water on Dobbs mania?
I mean, obviously, those first few games, I mean, he was, the results were out of this world, right? Like they were kind of creating artificially high expectations. There's nothing from this tape that would suggest to me that Dobbs can't play well down the stretch. I think There's definitely some stuff we want to clean up, some coaching points. And like I was saying too, there was definitely some issues. I wouldn't say issues, but there was definitely some things to clean up on play design, and play calling from that standpoint too. Stuff that I would have questions about, but nothing too alarming that would make me lose confidence as a fan or a coach in what Josh Dobbs can do.
All right, Bobby Peters, alert the post on Substack. Make sure you go check out his newsletter. Brilliant X's and O's stuff. A lot of books that you've written. If you type his name into Amazon, you'll see, including the 2021 Rams offensive manual, which has a lot of the Vikings concepts that they're using with Kevin O'Connell. Go check that out. And Bobby Peters on Twitter as well. Thanks so much for your time, for doing this again, Bobby. And we will definitely get together and do it again soon.
Thanks for having me, Matt.